I'm Johnny Hamill, and welcome to Jammin' with Johnny, KC Bass Stream. I have a unique way of life as a bass player and music educator. I felt like having a podcast long overdue. I'll talk shop with all my creative friends and shine light on things happening in KC. Today's episode, we talked to Xavier Foley about his composition, about him being a young bass player, age 13, and finding ISB and how his journey to becoming the master musician he is now. We talk about me meeting his parents at that age, and we talk about all of his composition and his big move to Kansas City, relocation to Kansas City, and how exciting it is that we're going to have him at the KC Bass Workshop this summer. As usual, please like and subscribe to KC Bass Stream, and if you so feel inclined, please become a patron member. Thanks. Welcome to Jamming with Johnny, KC Bass Stream. We are here with the extraordinary Xavier Foley. We just got done listening to his Irish Fantasy. We want to talk about his compositions, and that one when he played at the KC Bass Workshop last Labor Day weekend. We had a small one. Xavier kind of performed at the end, blew everybody's mind, and he ended with that piece. And I had all my students run up to me and say, I need to learn that piece. And I was like, oh yeah, that sounds great. But it's also the week of St. Patrick's Day, and I'm half Irish, so it's a good one to start our program with. Let's talk about that piece first, because you're doing this great stuff, which is you're performing all this great, or you're composing and performing all this great solo bass material, and something that's really important because we don't have as much solo bass material out there, and you're making the world excited about the bass with your compositions and your playing, right?
That's right.
Yeah, no, it's great. So this piece, first off, is based on an old, like 500-year-old song or something like that. Irish, the Clergyman's Lament. And I'm gonna cue up the original place where you found this song, but you want to talk about how you found it and what you did to it, how it inspired, how it all went down that you created this piece for them to understand.
Yeah, I was in sixth grade, and at the time I got my first computer, and I had this game on there that was pre-installed called Fate, and I kept playing that for hours and hours, and the soundtrack would never go away after I grew up. And so when I was at Curtis, I decided to experiment with the sounds I've heard as a kid and start with this game called Fate. And the soundtrack, I had to do a little bit of research on it because I didn't know who wrote it or what the name of it was.
Yeah.
But the piece is called The Clergyman's Lamentation, and it was written by an Irish folk song composer who was blind and rode on a horse with a harp, actually.
Wow.
Fun fact. His name was Carolyn O'Turlough, and he has a whole big list of Irish folk songs, and the Clergyman's Lamentation was the one I heard in this video game.
So let's just hear a little bit of it so people can know where it came from, okay?
Sure.
Because I got it queued up here. Over, right? Or
and
then it goes
loop
on.
It up.
Do they ever change the instrumentation on the video game here, or
I think that's it.
So
a lot of video games, to save space, they made the recording smaller and looped it so that way, because obviously the older the video game, the less you know, memory the video machine, however you're creating, give it to you. So it's kind of, you know, just like some early pop songs or Charlie Parker songs were actually longer, but they were shorter because they were on a 45-inch record. They didn't have the long records yet.
I'll do it.
Those are 33 inches and a third long players. That's why they call them LPs, because they were actually could put more longer. Did you know that?
Nope.
Yeah.
No.
So sometimes music is arranged for a certain reason. Anyway, if I was listening to that, playing that, I would definitely feel like my fate was in front of me.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a perfect bringing into something, and it was pretty cool that whoever, do you know who put that to the video game, like the composer or arranger?
Actually, the person who arranged it is like an actual musician.
Yeah, sure.
It was
a living.
Yeah. So it was a she, and I don't think she was particularly a video game composer. It was just her rendition of it.
Yeah.
She has if you do more research on this soundtrack, you'll find that the arranger has like a CD of arrangements of Irish music. So
yeah,
this is of course a very the original folk song is very simple. It's just a harp playing. But this is huge. It's got a whole multitude of instruments to it.
and they put that round in it that you do when you do the duet. On your solo bass version, you don't have the round going.
Oh, you mean the few? Well, yeah.
I'm sorry,
but it's canon, or I guess
canon. Yeah, so it kind of has that other part in it, and I didn't realize. I just thought you composed that, so it's cool that you kind of got it.
Well, I don't think this one had a canon, did it?
I don't know. It just comes in that last time on the last phrase. I thought it.
Yeah.
Going on there, but you know, the two lines going, which is not how. If I do go and listen to, if you just type in the Clergyman's Lamentation, you get all kinds of great folk versions of it, and on all kinds of great folk instruments. You know, so it's really nice. So you hear it on the harp, and it's great that you knew that he was a blind harpist on a horse.
Yeah,
I didn't know that part, and that's pretty exciting to find out that stuff, because you know, you get all this cool stuff out of a video game that you just randomly had as a kid, and then all of a sudden, like, I want to find cool things to say on my instrument, right?
Yeah.
So you bring it to your instrument, but that you develop it. So so I'm excited to say that you're going to come to the workshop this summer, and we're going to play this piece with like all the participants. So there's hopefully going to be like 100 bass players playing this piece.
Wow.
Won't that be cool?
That's really cool.
And we'll make easy parts for people. Like the minute I started working on your part, I sat down and made myself a lead sheet of the original piece.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I even put up the chords. I did some research, and I listened to 4 or 5 easily find once you know the name. And when you buy the sheet music, he has all this information in it. I went and watched the video game thing, and it was really cool.
Awesome.
It's all good that it's all there. And then it's even cool that it's, you know, like I said, it's almost 400 or 500 year old song.
Yeah.
And here it is back in exciting things because somebody decided to put it in a video game. It's kind of
there you go,
like the exciting reverberations going around the world.
Yeah,
and that's pretty cool. So then I just put up a lead sheet to myself, and I improvise to the lead sheet myself whenever I'm doing this. And I do this when I like try to play Bottesini, or, you know, a lot of Bottesini pieces are just the themes to the opera that he's about to do, or the Carmen fantasy you know, like you need to go and look at the real thing to really start to appreciate it. You
Yeah, it
know,
helps.
like it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And it's exciting, you know, like it's more than just playing the notes.
Yeah.
And so you get that kind of idea of what else can I do? And then you dive into your world, which is really great because your world is your choices of how to put it as a solo bass piece. And we have this cool thing that you have a duet. It's just for violin, or can it be played on two string instruments, your duet?
The duo is violin and bass.
Yep. Great. So, and then you'll get some more exciting ideas about what you can do and into the great musical mind of a great composer like yourself is great, especially for young kids. You know, that's more than just learning a song, and that's important.
Yeah.
Because, so I really wanted to point that out here, and that's why I want to play this. So I know there's a lot of young kids, and any of my young kids students, you start mentioning video games and they perk right up.
Sure.
Because that's where we get a lot of that's where I got a lot of my early musical inspiration. I played video games like crazy until I started playing the bass, and then I don't know how to play the video games as well because I spent too much time practicing.
You gotta get good, man.
Yeah. So let's talk about the rest of this piece now too, because so the rest of it is really kind of more your composition. It's not based on anybody else's, but boy, you really went to town as far as your being able to create an Irish fiddle sound, right?
Sure, yeah.
So obviously you didn't discover that from watching one small video game over and over again, because there's no jigs in the video game. So where did you come up with this love of this other stuff, and where did the rest of it come from?
I mean, when I was exposed to Edgar Meyer, who was my teacher,
yes,
in college, he plays a lot of bluegrass and fiddle, you know.
I think he won the fiddle contest like age 6 or something.
Yeah, I don't. That's yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
But he's yeah.
So he would you know, play with players like Mark O'Connor, who is a fiddle violinist,
amazing.
And I was exposed to a lot of that. I listened to everything he had, you know, Appalachian Trail, and stuff like that. So that kind of percolated into my, you know, my repertoire of sounds that I was. Also, Edgar plays a lot of Irish music. Some of the solos are Irish influence, and so that told me that, you know, you can kind of play Irish music on bass,
right?
And so when I wrote this at Curtis, the idea, and it's with all of my music really, is to see how many different influences I can incorporate on this one theme, which in this case is the clergyman's lamentation. And there's a section in the middle where I have a kind of a fiddle influential area where it's got this rhythm, da 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 da, where it's just strict, you know, da 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 da, and that's, you know, that's kind of the bluegrass thing. And that's just an example of one of the styles I use in Irish fantasy.
Yeah. Well, and then I wanted to get into that because obviously when I first started looking at the sheet music, of course I was able to play it. I've been playing solo pieces like that for a while. I mean, I wasn't able to sight read it like you sight read it.
But, I didn't sight read it either. I had to.
You have to work on it.
I gotta practice
because you know that's the fun part about playing solo music is that way when you get to it pushes your boundaries and even reading and stuff. But anyway, I like the endings, those great fifths, double stops, you know, and everything. They're just really fun to play, and so it was definitely fun for me to play through it because I just loved it on my own. But I intuitively knew that I needed to listen to you play it because of your sense of phrasing is so impeccably great, and that's probably the biggest thing about your the way you approach music and stuff is like you really, as you say, go and grab all of these nuances that, in this case, a fiddle player would do, whether that's an Irish fiddle player or an Appalachian. I would say Mark O'Connor's from Appalachia and Edgar's from Appalachia, which is American trans 100, 200 years later of that. But like it's all still kind of the same thing. The fiddle players sometimes do these things that you're like, oh, that's so cool. Like they're sliding into the notes, like you gliss a lot.
Yep.
And you're doing some things with your bow that are really intriguingly great. And some of those things in the bow, if you first saw it, you would say, if a beginner, my student would be like, oh, he's just, sometimes you move your bow laterally up a little bit just to get a little bit of a different sound, right?
Yeah.
So you're really exploring all those things that the bow can do. That's not just taught in the classical, like this is how you make Bottesini work. This is how you do it.
Yeah.
And so it's to study this piece with you, because we have this great video of you playing, and it's wonderful. And and then later some duets, and there's even some alternative endings to the pieces. But you could see how that's such a great resource for a young person to dive into this, and then later your other pieces too. That even if you're just learning the melody and you can't quite handle all the double stops or the fancy ending, even if you're just doing the beginning piece with you and kind of understanding that phrasing is really key, because that's something that we'll talk about later. I know that, but that idea that anyone at any level can really handle singing something to themselves and trying to make it sound like that. And it's so much fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
So another reason why I just really am grateful that you wrote this piece, and that has this kind of history to it, because it's more than just another piece you wrote one day. It has some pretty history for you, because you've known this song since you were young.
Yeah.
Not that you're old, in my opinion, but like you're older now, and you can bring it all together. And then of course you're where you are right now musically, and you're just putting all this cool stuff for us bass players to go after, to run after. Like it's quite inspiring, because I know my students, if I was 14, I don't know if I'd sit around and practice scales all the time, but I definitely want to practice playing something extraordinarily cool.
Sure.
I mean, not that I wouldn't practice scales, but all the time, like in college, no, I think you have to be ready for that.
Yeah.
Like you want inspiration first, and then go chase after it. And boy, what a great piece for this. And like I said, I already know that it has that inspiration, because all of my students came running out, even the ones that aren't nowhere ready. And that's really exciting.
Awesome.
For you to play. So hopefully we'll have a whole bunch of people. Hopefully COVID lets us have a real proper bass concert at the end of this fantastic week of learning.
Yep.
And I know most people out there, if you don't know Xavier, but he tours the world and plays these big concerts, and we'll talk more about that here in a bit. But so he's going to take his time with us, and more importantly, take his time with the young kids. I say that you inspire me, who's an old man, and you, more importantly, you have that really vision that you understand that there's a kid out there that you could reach and really change their life, because that's happened to you. And of course, I got the fortune of seeing you win the 14 and under competition at ISB, and you were playing Bottesini's second, the famous Bottesini concerto. And it was just, I remember that. But what I really remember about your performance, because your performance was lights out and was stellar, what I remember was actually that you were in the young ISB young bassist program, so you were in basically a workshop type of thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you were actually in the jazz program, and I was watching you work. I wasn't the instructor for the jazz group. You were working with
Rufus Reed.
Rufus, and you were just like soaking it up. So like,
Yeah.
you were like a sponge. And it was great that you had this attitude of, oh yeah, and you were playing great things in there and everywhere, and then you turn around and play Bottesini, and I was just like, this is wonderful, because you, to me, you were like the next generation, that there is no boundaries of music, you know.
Sure.
Like, it's Bottesini's wonderful, you know, Charlie Parker's wonderful, you know, whatever.
Yeah. It's
Irish
all good.
fiddlers, great. You know, you've got so many great musical styles that there shouldn't be any boundaries for music. Like, it's just so great, you know, and there's so many cool ways to do it. And especially when you deal with young kids in the way I do, it's like, why would you, you know, say, I only want you to eat tacos for the rest of your life? You know,
Right.
that's the way I think of it. Like, why not eat all the food? Like, it's all out there. It's all pretty good. I'm not saying tacos aren't bad, but
sure,
you know, sometimes if all we get is Bottesini, then Bottesini isn't exciting anymore, and that's a crime in itself. Because Bottesini should be exciting.
Absolutely.
You know, like, it's great. So, we want to talk about how you got started, because you have this great piece. Should we play the piece first and then talk about your first teacher and how you got started on the bass, or should we talk about him and then play the piece?
Maybe we should talk about it and then play. I think.
Okay.
Yeah, just get to know him.
So, how old were you when you started playing the bass?
11.
And you were in Atlanta.
Marietta, Georgia.
Marietta, Georgia, which is...
It's a suburb of Atlanta.
Okay, so...
Yeah, it's close enough.
Okay, cool. Thanks. And so, 11, and how did you find the bass?
I started on piano when I was 8, a little earlier, and it wasn't my forte, you know.
Yeah.
So...
You didn't like it, or you just weren't that good at it?
It would... I probably could have done better.
Uh-huh.
I just wasn't inspired at all.
Right, yeah.
But you know, when I started bass, I heard of this instrument before in the jazz band, and I thought I didn't know bass was a classical instrument at first. So I wasn't expecting I wasn't expecting to learn classical, but then when I got my first teacher, and his name was Douglas Summer, who was part of he was a section bassist of the Atlanta Symphony.
Wow.
He started me on pieces like the Vivaldi Cello Sonata.
Yeah.
And I remember it was the first one I played, the number 1. And I just remember working on the music for the first time and being so enthralled and infatuated by this concept that you can play a singing line over 8 bars. And that was like, wow. And I just got obsessed with that. And I remember that was the time I really fell in love with the concept of, you know, singing on the bass, and kind of started when I first started playing very early. So that's my story of starting the bass.
And you're starting out with some great compositions, singing wise, because nobody drives a melody better than Vivaldi. It's so good.
It's good stuff.
Those sonatas are so wonderful.
Yeah.
So good job, Mr. Summers, of giving you that stuff.
Yeah, he knew what he was
That's
doing.
Some quality material, because, you know, I got started with the Simando method, and there's nothing wrong with the Simando method, except that it's ridiculously it's a lot of exercises and not a lot of music in there.
Well, yeah.
You know,
I tried Simando too, but you know.
So not that I was older by the time I started Simando, so I was ready. You know, I mean, it shows you how to do it, but
right.
But when you deal with a kid, you know, you're just trying to, as you said, make them not turn into what you described as a piano. Like
right.
you want them not to view the instrument as, oh, I got to go practice, or like I want it to be like the video game.
Yeah,
Like nobody ever says, hey, you got to go practice your Mario Brothers.
No,
Like, no,
Yeah,
it's like, what'd you say about the fate? It was just happened to be it was just fate that it was on your computer and you just got sucked into it.
That's right.
And so that's that's what you want for a young person, is just to get inspired the way that Mr. Summers did for you, which we all thank Mr. Summers for that, because so did you start the bass at like school and then get him as an instructor, or did you just go straight to him?
I started in the orchestra program, and my orchestra director
eventually said,
Miss Brown said, you should
do lessons.
Because she noticed that I took it a little more seriously than
no,
so
that's good.
So that's when I found Doug, and I auditioned for this program called the Talent Development Program, which is part of the Atlanta Symphony. And at the time, I mean, still today, the mission of the Talent Development Program is to encourage diversity in the arts, especially in the classical music field.
Yeah.
And so that allowed me to get free lessons with Doug for my whole middle school, high school time playing. And that without that, I mean, I would have been done. So that was,
you would have just been still playing your video game.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be playing bass. I mean, so I have to mention that because they were a huge help in allowing me to study with Doug Summers.
Right.
So
and that's really important for people to hear out there, because one of the things that I know about ISB, the young bassist thing, even what George Vance was doing, and what I'm trying to do in Kansas City is reach as many people, because the minute, as we said, once you get inspiration, then sometimes I know the bass really kind of kept me on a good straight path myself. I'm just playing video games all my life or whatever. And that's a great route, and that's a side product of everything, but it sure is nice to that you're a living story of that.
Sure.
Which is cool. So you mentioned Douglas. Does it go by Douglas?
Well, everybody calls him Doug.
Okay, cool.
So that's his formal name.
He really took you under your wing and got you going. And then how did you end up at ISB? Was it through him, or because?
Yeah, he recommended everything I did because he was well connected in the bass world.
Yes, awesome. So he gave you a good pathway.
Yeah,
which is another thing that I just want to say that to any young bassists out there. I feel like there should be a young bassist thing. There should be a program for people who don't normally have a pathway to classical music or whatever music. Really, they need that route. The arts really can change the world in such a great way. And that pathway is it's the reason why I do what I do, to find that people. So if you're out there and you think, and I definitely felt that the first time I started playing in a real orchestra, I was like, I'm from the inner city, I grew up playing rock and roll, I don't belong here. You know what I mean? Like this like so weird to and it just took me a while to understand that Bach wrote music for the world. Like classical music is everyone's music.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't just for the kings.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's for everyone. Yeah. And that's why, that's why when you hear Xavier play, you're really kind of talking for the world.
Sure.
I mean, I know it's just you, but it's really wonderful to see that. So we're going to play this piece. So unfortunately, your teacher has
passed away.
Yep. And you wrote this beautiful, beautiful piece for him.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna listen to it, and this is just awesome. And then just talk a little bit about the piece and why you wrote it. Obviously, there's obvious reasons, but
yeah.
When you play this and mentioned to it, it was just like you first time you played it at the workshop. I don't think you mentioned anything about it. You just started playing it.
Oh, yeah.
And then I was just like crying because it, you know, like the other. I think you played Bach and it was awesome, and then you played something like this, and I just couldn't believe it. And then you told me actually what it was about, and the story is great, but it's all in there. What we kind of just described is kind of all in there. So it really unlocked me emotionally.
Awesome.
So check it out. I think you almost got me there again when I looked at it. I was like, whoa! Like you can hit notes on the bass that, like when Billie Holiday sings, or you know, when they get you,
or resonate with you.
Resonate. Hit me in all the fields, as they say.
Awesome.
And unfortunately, you definitely, everybody should go to Xavier's YouTube and his website, because he has these videos. You can just go down this wormhole and just find all of his amazing compositions. I Obviously in the middle is where it really gets sentimental, and it's almost like a chorale or something like that,
Yeah.
And but the beginning is this kind of arpeggiation. Is there something that reminds you of your teacher? Why did it start that way? I was just wondering if there was another layer of the story compositionally for that.
Yeah, I mean, the beginning is just a way to introduce the audience to the accompaniment.
Uh-huh.
So the piece doesn't actually start until the singing part. And so we had the singing part on top of the accompaniment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just the whole thing is one big band
Mm-hmm.
played on a bass.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's wonderful. I was, there was part of me that was thinking, because I think of my first teachers and the pieces that they gave me, and I was just thinking, I was just seeing if there was something there in that part that reminded you of something he gave you.
Oh, maybe something supplemental.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking, that maybe something was that it was an interpersonal thing between you.
Maybe
there, but
you never know.
But yeah, so it's wonderful, and the whole composition is really nice, because it's especially for any younger person out there to know there's, like, to create a solo bass piece, which is so great. Why I really love the Irish Fantasies, because it's a solo bass piece and a duet. Like, you kind of added both things in there, and where you go as a composer, a solo piece, sometimes there's parts that are unspoken, but they're spoken, right? Like, as you said, that's the band playing at the beginning.
Yeah.
That, to the casual first time listener, they might not know that. They're just hearing notes, and they don't hear all that stuff, which is really great. As something about, like, the Bach cello suites, like, it's like Bach was reveling in the fact that it's just one instrument, not a keyboard. That he only had so many voices to work with, and he kind of used it to his compositional advantage, and that's definitely a good example of you using the solo instrument in its greatness, and something that you do really, really well as a composer, and that's really kind of exciting, and it's probably what makes your music really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I don't know.
No. It's nice for people to hear that, because a lot of our students that are out there listening, they don't really know the difference between solo and concerto, and like, you didn't know that growing up either until your teachers kind of showed it to you, and then of course ISB for me was the big eye-opening experience. I didn't know the bass could do all that stuff. I got to see Rufus Reed for the first time. I got to see Mark Dresser for the first time, Francois Rabath, and everyone was there. Yeah. Everyone was there the first one. I mean, now all of my heroes go there, including you.
Oh, man.
I mean, your ISB recital last summer was the best part of the pandemic.
Oh, that's good to hear. Yeah.
It was fantastic.
Awesome.
So I don't know if if the honor of I'm sure Douglas is smiling down that you wrote that piece for him.
Yeah, hopefully.
You know what I mean? Like, and music, especially instrumental music, it says more than I could ever say. You know, like
Yeah.
a lot of times I feel like I'm just babbling on it. You know, like
Yeah,
how do
yeah.
I put that in words? But
Right.
that piece just kind of says it all.
Spoke for itself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know what I mean. And so instrumental music to me can be the deepest
Absolutely.
emotionally, and it's what drew it to me.
Awesome.
Or you know, like I'm more drawn to instrumental music than words. Not that I don't like words, but one note sometimes means more than
Yeah.
anything, you know.
Sure.
So it's pretty cool. Um, so that's really nice. I want to tell the story about meeting your dad at ISB because there's also another element about you to me that represents this because I get to witness all of the bass parents who do so, like some of them are just extraordinary lengths to get their kid a bass and then get them to lessons and then get them, you know, to ISB, which is a long drive. You guys, I saw you in Pennsylvania, so you guys drove for a day and a half, 2 days, like I did.
Yeah.
You know, just to go hang out with a bunch of bass players.
There you go.
And your dad is not a bass player. Your
Nope.
mom's not a bass player, but they supported you whole like crazy, really.
Yeah.
And I can't remember. Are they musicians too?
Mm-mm.
No, nothing. Yeah. Okay. So my favorite part, and this is really important because everybody out there, especially if you're a young bass player and you understand this, that I heard Xavier play in the jazz group, and then it was like the next time. It wasn't at the final concert, but you were doing a master class because I had students there too. So some of my students were in the same group, so I was just sticking my head in and seeing how things were going,
Sure.
seeing how my student was doing, and you know, saying hello. I can't stay out of the young bassist side of anything really.
Right.
It's very hard for me.
Yeah.
But anyway, I the next class you were with Anthony Stoops, and you played the Bottesini for him right in front of my student. I think my student looked back at me and was like, "I'm supposed to play after that." Yeah, it was great, and he was playing Bach, so I was like, "You're fine."
There you go.
But you know, it was just how we feel. And then anyway, I walked out of that master class. You know, like ISB, we're smiling ear to ear. Every waking moment is another great joy. But so you were definitely like 13, 14 at this time.
Yep.
And you were playing Bottesini, the first movement, at least in the master class.
Yeah.
And then I looked at your dad and I was like, "Hey, where are you guys from?" And he was just sitting outside on the, you know, like outside the classroom chilling. And I was like, "Your son sounds great," you know, which is what I normally talk to parents about, you know.
Sure.
And I was like, "Where are you guys from? Atlanta? Oh yeah, cool." I was like, "Are you a musician?" And his response was, "Nope, I don't know anything about it. I don't know how I even got there. I just bring him to these things. I just support him." It was so much like what my dad would say, because my dad's not a musician, and you know, he's like, "If you're into it, okay, cool."
Sure.
And that is fantastic because here I'm going to brag on you a bit, but you are one of the finest musicians on the planet. You just happen to play the bass, and I'll say it. You don't have to agree with me, but you know, like you are a living Mozart or whatever you want to say. Uh, you're a supreme musician anyway, and you didn't come from a family of musicians the way that the myth would be that, you know, you have to be born into the Bach family to be this great musician. And music, that's very important for people to hear out there because I get this all the time from musical parents like, "What? My kid's not that," you know, like they sometimes put a prejudgment on it, you know.
Oh.
You know what I mean? And that could be pretty harmful for people. Not and so the right attitude for parents, and I try to tell all of my parents this, you know, it's like, "Hey, just keep having fun with the kid and be inspiration and just keep encouraging them because sometimes it takes a while before something happens. That's for sure.
Yeah.
You know, like, and it's not always that. And so I haven't seen your dad since that conversation, but I've told you to tell him thank you.
Oh,
You
yeah,
know,
I
like
will.
many
For sure,
times.
yeah.
You know, and if he ever wants to come on here and talk to me, I'll Zoom call him anytime, and he can talk to everybody
Sure.
about his experience as a bass parent.
Sure.
Because that's good, and I'm sure your mom would be just as delightful to talk to too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm sorry to veer off in that direction,
No,
but I think that's important for you to know, because I know that when we first started talking, you didn't know that I knew you way back then.
Nope.
You know, and you know, like it was really cool. So
Yeah.
I want to talk about how you I got a text from Hans that said you were coming to, you might be stopping by Kansas City, and of course, I have a bass family, and it's anyone that plays the bass, you know. So I said, yeah, sure, if he's coming, you know, it's cool with me. And of course, I already knew who you were, as I said, and I said you were hit this moment. You were in your I think you were in New York or New Jersey. I can't remember. But
Jersey.
You were in an apartment, and you were pandemiced out, and you were like, this is maybe paying too much money, and you had this moment of, I don't know, you just decided to pack all your stuff and drive to the Midwest for some reason, and anyway, you had this desire to find another location to do your stuff.
A settlement.
Which is great. And I was like, cool, yeah. And, you know, anyone coming to my town, of course, I love Kansas City. I'm from here. I didn't leave Kansas City for a reason, because I just love it artistically. And, you know, it's a really, really creative town.
Yeah.
And cool. When I was your age, I was going to New York, I was going to San Francisco and LA, and all my friends were like, come move here. And I was like, yeah. I mean, I wanted to move there, but I also was like, man, I felt like I would be creatively stifled, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
And here, I never was. I could always do what I wanted to do and not have to worry about so much the paycheck myself. So that was what I liked about Kansas City. But of course, I'm from here, so you know how.
You know what it's like.
I know where. I know where all the cheap places to go to eat are. So and the good places, I don't have to find out. You know, in New York City, you got to find out.
You got to find it,
And so anyway, I just drove you around, and you went to many other cities and checked it out, because that was your mission for the summer.
Yeah.
But you chose Kansas City.
I did.
You saw my vision.
Yeah.
So how's Kansas City treating you? You've been here now, what, 3, 4, 5 months?
So I moved in late September.
September?
Yeah.
Oh, 6. Yeah. You're almost a resident.
Yeah, time passes.
Permanent resident.
Might be able to be a citizen after a few years.
You got to eat at all the barbecue places there.
Oh,
it's going to take you more than 6 months to eat at all the barbecue.
That's a requirement.
So, how is it? You're enjoying Kansas City. So you moved downtown, KC, Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
Our downtown. It's
I'd say more. It's close to downtown, but on Midtown. Because I'm on,
he's in downtown. Don't worry.
Okay, so I mean,
Midtown is 30th Street. You're on.
Oh,
you're on.
All right, I listen to you.
But you're in the. You can almost say you're in the transition, but not really.
Okay.
It's cool. It's cool.
You tell me.
It's cool. But it's more exciting. Like you're composing. You're finding space, creative space, to make these new compositions, which is something that you are looking for.
Yeah.
Right. You're in an exciting place so that you can go next door and meet people your age that are both as artistically exciting. So it's not like if you get out in the middle of the country, it's great. You have a lot of space, but you don't have a lot of interaction with other artists. There's none out there. I mean, there's some, but they cherish they're not really gonna, they don't want to just have coffee at the coffee shop.
I actually end up meeting a lot of Kansas City Chief fans.
Well, there's a lot here. Yes. Well,
I mean, a lot of them.
It's not a bad time to be a Kansas City Chiefs fan.
Yeah,
when I was growing up, it wasn't so good. We had about 20 years of, I don't know. How are the Falcons this year?
Well, I don't really follow football that much.
I know.
But
the town kind of blew up might have been the best thing of the pandemic is we actually went to the Super Bowl first time in my lifetime.
Yeah.
So it's been a long time. They went to the Super Bowl right before. But but creatively you feel like it's the same as New York as far as the meeting people. How do you feel about it?
I didn't meet nobody.
Oh yeah.
The part of Jersey I lived, I was the only person in that town.
Yeah.
As far as a musician. So I was just isolated. Yeah. But here I can just, walk out a few blocks and just meet people.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I run into, people in classical music or rock or whatever. Yeah. Sometimes they know me, which is cool, and have a good time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Midwest is more friendly than the East Coast in general.
Way friendlier.
Yeah, and Atlanta's a big town. I don't know how it is for the suburb, but Georgia is the same. Everybody's very hospitable.
Yeah.
So when you and that was one of the things when I went to LA and New York for the first time, it was like, whoa.
Yep.
They almost don't have time to talk to you.
You got to mind your own business.
Yeah. And so it's until you know that, it's really can be off-putting sometimes, or definitely you can feel lonely next to too many people, which is kind of a strange feeling.
Some people like it though. I mean,
no, it is good. It's good for the people. I definitely know that from my friends that do live in New York and LA and San Fran. It's really wonderful. And I like those. I say that not just because I want them to still be my friend, because I want to go visit them.
Yeah.
Because for me, those towns are exciting. I want to visit those towns. I don't want to live there.
No, I'm living now.
So it could have been a little bit of that, and but I liked that you found that you do have lots of creative people in our city because it's reasonable to live there cost-wise.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad thing.
Sure.
And so it's kind of nice. And of course, Kansas City kind of is going through a big renaissance, so to speak, especially your area of Kansas City is really going, the Crossroads district, when we kind of started it in the late 80s, things were talked about cheap. There was nobody down there, so we could have all kinds of galleries and shows and stuff.
Not quite like that nowadays.
Yeah, it's a little bit more expensive to do, and of course, it's a good thing. And of course, there was all these other places in Kansas City that are like that, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And the artists really thrive here, and I think we're living in the golden age of Kansas City music scene, because we have a lot of clubs that we can go see, a lot of jazz, a lot of rock, and kind of talk about that in these episodes with other people who've been doing it. But I was excited that you found that.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know you wanted that, because you're a classical guy.
Well, yeah, somewhat. Yeah.
But you play so many different kinds of music. It's great that you can discover that.
Yeah.
So then I want to say this because we just had lunch, another barbecue place checked off your list.
That's right.
And you told me something really exciting, that you have just finished your bass concerto.
That's right.
Which is really exciting, because the bass concerto world needs more bass concertos, but one from you is great. And then as we kept talking, I kept saying, "Oh, what's yours more about?" And you said it's a soul R&B influenced.
Yeah. There you go.
So
it'll be fun.
I don't know of any of those out there.
Yeah, well, so this will be it.
It's going to be great, and of course, that's really exciting because we mentioned at the beginning of the episode, like how you took all these fiddle things in it. You also have another amazing piece called this. Is this the Soul Singer or the Singer?
The Singer.
The Singer,
yep.
But it's based on Soul
Singer,
and you're doing all the glissandi, just like you're making it speak like it's Marvin Gaye or something.
Absolutely, yeah. That kind of stuff. Yeah.
So now, for anyone that out there that doesn't know, concerto means it's like the bass solo with other parts, but the other part is the orchestra is backing you up.
Right.
Which, when you really get to orchestra music, and I want to say this to everyone out there, because the thing that blew me away the most about orchestra, once it really struck you, and you really have to go see the orchestra, because it's a tone color smorgasbord.
Yep.
And it's like, and it's so cool. And solo bass is definitely my favorite thing, but to have that sound with all that other sound, that's super exciting, man. And then throw on it that it's going to be soul based music. It's going to be almost like what hip hop with Hamilton, like that's groundbreaking. I don't know if you've heard that, but it's like,
sounds cool.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah, I have to see it.
Oh, you have to, because it's like the soundtrack is so groundbreakingly new and different. It was a breath of fresh air. So I'm excited to hear this concerto.
Yeah.
But I also want to say this to people, because we didn't ever talk about how you really started to compose. You composed at age 11, or did you compose when you mentioned this was written at Curtis. The first piece was written at Curtis, and then obviously the last piece was written in the last couple years.
Yeah.
So, how did you start composing?
I was first writing probably around 16, but it wasn't that great. I mean, it wasn't really comfortable, and I think the main thing that allowed my pieces to really take off was me being comfortable introducing my own influences that are kind of different than classical.
Right.
And so the Irish Fantasy was the first piece that I went outside of my comfort zone.
Wow.
And
cool.
And then after that, I just started doing the same thing. And so I did a Persian one. I took an Iranian folk song.
Oh, that's a great one. I love that one.
Yep.
So that was your second piece. Irish Fantasy was your first one, or the first one out of your company?
The one that really worked.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the
so
Persian one.
That's anyone that we can buy on. Yeah, you can buy all of his sheet music on his website.
Yeah, every single thing.
So that's the first one that you published.
Yes.
Or any of that that's the earliest piece.
It's the earliest, yeah.
And so, and the Iranian is the second one?
Yep.
Woo.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then so now it's really grown into something, because now you're getting commissions to compose pieces.
Yeah.
And that's what the Space Concerto is.
Yep.
And then I can't remember, we don't have a video, but at the end we're going to play the double concerto that you wrote.
Yeah.
And you got commissioned to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's with violin and bass.
Yep.
And it's amazing. So, it's really good. And so really we have two bass concertos from you.
Yeah, well,
that one's not.
Let's see
You're going to have to practice just as hard for both of them. I'm sure. All of your pieces are pretty hard.
Well, this next one I'm doing, which is the world premiere, is on the 24th of March. Ooh. If you're in the Atlanta area, you should check it out.
Yeah.
It's with the Atlanta Symphony. But that one's a little easier.
So the newest piece.
Yeah, it should be.
Oh, thanks. You did that for me. So.
Well, I mean, accessibility is always a very good thing when writing anything.
Yeah.
Because I want a lot of people to play it down the road.
Right.
The thing I learned, just a little side thing, is I think some of the best ways of writing for me to think about in the future is to do as much as you can creative wise, but at the same time make it as accessible as possible. If you can do more with less, that's gold. And,
Yeah.
and an example of a composer who does that very well is Chopin and his waltzes.
Oh yeah.
I mean, those are the most well-known compositions, but they're so simple.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, and when you take a composer like Franz Liszt,
Yeah.
his stuff is really hard, but it's not as known as the simple things in life.
Yeah.
That's just something I kind of.
Yeah. That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
And you're right. Sometimes, and I said that to you about so this one will really speak to people because I don't know, there's not too many people out there that don't know who Marvin Gaye is, or the Temptations, or Prince, or whatever.
Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Earth, Wind, and Fire.
That's one of my biggest inspirations.
Oh yeah, good.
And that Earth, Wind, and Fire was kind of what got me thinking, because you can really, for someone who doesn't know music, you can really sing to the track and be a part of it, and that's something that I think a lot of people like to do. So.
Well, yeah, it's so good. Yeah, Earth, Wind, and Fire. Oof.
So that's kind of.
Sorry, I didn't say that first, man.
Well, yeah. So that's kind of the basis of my concerto. Mm-hmm. Not to just present something that's like really complicated or too esoteric, but to have something that's simple enough for the audience to sing with the bass. Mm-hmm. Except for the third movement. Okay, that's a fugue. I mean, but it's going to be a little more. That's for me. Yeah. But the first and especially the second movement, it's really something that anybody can sing. Mm-hmm. So I think it'll be a fun time for everyone.
Well, that reminds me of the great Beethoven. The last thing, Ode to Joy. He was looking.
Oh yeah.
He's looking for something that's that melody's right up there with Twinkle Twinkle Little Star.
There you go.
It's like a earworm that you can't stop singing, and of course what he does with it is great.
One of the most well-known pieces.
Yeah.
And like the Fifth Symphony, it's just da 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 da, but repeated. It's simple, but
exactly. So like that idea of finding pieces that people say, and on that note, so I teach kids, and the bass is such a great instrument because you get more people who aren't classical parents bringing them to the bass, because it seems like it's a more open, at least the American parents, they don't necessarily want their kid to be Mr. Classical. They just want them to experience music.
Right.
And a lot, including myself, I didn't grow up in a musical or classical music household. I learned classical music through cartoons more than I did going to the symphony, which is sad on my part, because I wished I did that. But I think there's more people like that. And so then we get into the idea of solo bass music, and people think, oh, it's some academic thing. And then I'm looking at them like, no. When you come see Xavier play, you're going to walk out of there like you just went and saw Marvin Gaye play, because you're going to be crying, and I don't know, there's no drums, so maybe not dancing, but you might be dancing on the inside.
Yeah. I have a piece called The Dance.
Yeah, cool. But I say that, instrumental music, but so I've been running this Kansas City Bass Workshop for, I think we're going our 13th, 14th year. And every year, the first year, the recitals were just the teachers play at night, and there was 10 people there, and most of them were students, and half the students were like, okay, I'm done with bass. And it was very much like you know, an academic thing, but the music was off the hook, crazy good. And so every year I started saying, wait a minute, why don't we just have a concert at the record bar, or let's do it at the places I play, the venues I play, instead of having it in the academic place that we hold the workshop. So we started the Kansas City Bass Fest, and it's just blown up because everybody wants to come hear the bass do this stuff.
Yeah.
So there'll be a night where you can hear Xavier do that, and you'll hear everybody so the faculty is crazy about it because they all get to go and play a solo bass gig,
Yep.
and that's kind of neat because a lot of times I can go out and play gigs, but I'm playing the bass part to
Sure.
somebody singing or in the orchestra, which I love to do, but to strut the bass out there and to really feel the emotional thing. And of course, if you go to a place like this for the week and really get the spectrum of the bass, it might help you to do it. And of course, that's the reason why I started the podcast, and that's why we're playing these pieces for the people, so that they can really, oh yeah, I'd rather go hear a bass concert than maybe another kind of concert, it's
all the other ones.
All the other ones are good. I'm not gonna, like I said, food is food. I'm
Yeah,
gonna say
yeah.
music, but the bass needs to, that's shining
that
light.
spotlight, yeah.
And you are like a blazingly, you're going across the world and doing that for everyone. When I said that to you, I said we need the more that you succeed, the more that we all succeed. So thank you for your work, because I know it's not easy just to go from town to town and play and compose and do all that stuff, because you could easily do something with less amount of work, and probably, so we're all really grateful that you're
And just be a chef.
Yeah, you can just be a chef. I mean, there's
which I do love cooking. That's my next love.
Oh yeah, cool. I mentioned that we'll have to have you come over, and I'll actually make you barbecue in my backyard.
Yeah, I gotta learn how to smoke some barbecue.
Yeah, it's easy. If you already know how to cook, you just need to see me do it once, and you'll do it better.
All right. Oh wow.
Because I'm not a chef.
Oh man.
This last piece is a double concerto. So how old is it, and when did you write it, and was there a special reason? And give some insight on that one.
So this was commissioned in 2019. It was a joint commission between the Sphinx organization, the Carnegie Hall, and the New World Symphony.
Those are some big names there.
Yeah. It was nice of them to contribute.
Yeah.
So the president of the Sphinx organization, Afa Dworkin, is the wife of the founder, Aaron Dworkin, and Sphinx is the whole mission. This is important, by the way, for the concerto. The mission of Sphinx is to promote diversity in classical music. This is another program I went through when I was in high school and college, and I was lucky enough to win one of the competitions, which is the main thing about Sphinx. Is when you win a competition, you are given the opportunity to solo with many of their partner organizations for symphonies.
Nice.
So when I won Sphinx, I was able to play the Bottesini and the Nina Rota and stuff like that with all these different orchestras, like the Detroit Symphony and the Philadelphia Orchestra and that kind of thing.
You came to Kansas City and performed, I think, through that, didn't you?
I don't think so.
Before you moved here, you played at the Kaufman, didn't you? Or did it get canceled?
So
due to the pandemic?
The Sphinx Virtuosi is probably what you mean.
Yeah.
Because Sphinx also has a touring group of all the semifinalists of the competition that get together and tour around the United States.
Right. Yeah.
I don't remember. I played my piece in the beginning.
Okay. Cool.
Because it was a tour. So I don't remember exactly where, but we probably did the double concerto at the Kaufman with the Sphinx Virtuosi group.
I think so.
So I also played at the Foley Center recital there.
Yeah. Okay.
Too. But
and that was before you moved here. Is all I wanted to say.
That was all before that. I just stay at a hotel, went there, and I didn't know too much about everything else.
When you're on tour, you go to the cities, but you don't really know.
No, you know nothing.
So,
but the idea of the piece. Alpha, who is the president, wanted to have a piece on the program that's marked, not celebrated, but marked the 400th year ever since the first slave arrived in Jamestown, Virginia.
Yeah.
Because the theme of the program we were touring with was called For Justice and Peace.
Yeah.
So she thought that'd be a fitting thing.
Yeah.
And it ended up being that my piece was the name of the tour thing, For Justice and Peace. So that's where that comes from.
Oh, so you named it, or you took that name?
So that was, I took it. I mean, it's part of the whole thing.
No,
so
that's great.
When I wrote it, I took what she said about trying to really educate people on the history of slavery.
Yeah.
And I thought, wouldn't it be cool to have the orchestra sing and play at the same time?
Yeah.
And so at the end, there's this chorus in there. That's the spirituals. And there is also a gavel. One of the players in the second violin played the gavel.
Yeah.
And that represents the courtroom. And
that's great.
Yeah, so that's For Justice and Peace.
Yeah. It's wonderful. And so that one, you publish this one on your website too, or is it no?
So that one you would need rental parts if you're going to do it with an orchestra.
I mean, if somebody needed to do it, would there be a piano reduction for it or no?
There should be.
Okay, cool. Because that's nice that they would because obviously young students out there, obviously that's a really important message for people to hear, because continue to work towards justice and peace.
There you go.
You know what I mean? Like, that's great. So anyway, thanks for dropping by. Obviously, you're in Kansas City, so we got to eat barbecue all the time and hang. And maybe in a couple of more episodes, I'll get you back here and we'll talk about something else.
Yeah.
Because I know you have so many great things to say on your website. You've put up a lot of videos just for bass players, like improvisation on the bass, and just this idea of taking the different vibrato between an R&B singer versus a opera singer. Like night and day, right? So it's really important to hear all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so please visit him. He's doing some wonderful work online, especially I kind of feel funny because every time I do these interviews, I'm thinking about the United States students, but I know that there's everyone from around the world listening to podcasts that can happen. That's the neat part.
Yeah.
We're talking to everyone. It doesn't matter where you are. Even if you're in some place that barely gets the internet, you can still listen to it.
There you go.
All you need is that little bit of internet, and you got it. So have fun out there, bass people. I hope you enjoy this last piece. Hope you enjoy Xavier's conversation. I know I do. I get more out of it than all of my guests. So thanks for dropping by.
Sure.
And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed the episode of Jammin' with Johnny, KC Bass Stream. Please don't forget to check out johnnyhamel.com and kcbassworkshop.com to keep updated on what's new. I would also like to remind you that I'm an independent artist and music educator. I'll continue to shine the light on bass players and work to build cool creative community that does independent art. That includes my own. I deeply appreciate your support of the artists that are interviewed and to support the things that I do. On both websites there are donation buttons, marketplaces, merchandise, and like buttons. Every little bit helps.